A billionaire overheard Maid's daughter teaching a secret language. The meaning changed him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In a city full of glittering lights and untold wealth, there was one mansion that stood out above the rest. It was home to billionaire Edward Hale, a man whose business empire spanned continents and whose influence was felt in every corner of the world. From his penthouse office on the top floor of a towering skyscraper to the marble floors of his sprawling estate, Hale had everything. Money, power, luxury, it was all his. But there was something missing in his life. He had everything money could buy, yet something inside him felt empty. He often found himself staring out of his office window, watching the city below, wondering if he was missing the most important thing of all. As the owner of a multinational corporation, Hale was accustomed to being surrounded by the best of the best. His staff was carefully selected for their expertise, their professionalism, and their ability to serve him without question. Among them was Abigail Hayes, a quiet woman who worked as the housekeeper in his mansion. She was dedicated to her job, always moving silently through the halls, keeping everything spotless, and never asking for anything in return. But there was something special about her daughter, Clementine. At just 10 years old, Clementine was often seen wandering the vast halls of Hale's estate, her innocent eyes taking in the opulence around her. Despite being told to remain out of sight, she couldn't help but notice the world of wealth and power she was surrounded by. One evening, as Hale was preparing for a lavish dinner party with influential guests, he overheard something that would forever change the way he saw the world and his staff. From the corner of the room, he heard the soft murmur of Clementine speaking in a language he didn't recognize. It wasn't English, French, or any language he had encountered before. It was a series of words, fluid and rhythmic, like music. Hale stood frozen for a moment, intrigued by the sound. He had heard her speak to her mother before, but this was different. There was something magical about the way she spoke. It wasn't just the language. It was the way the words seemed to dance in the air, weaving a story all their own. What was she saying? Who was she speaking to? Curiosity piqued. Hale moved closer, stepping quietly into the room where Clementine was sitting with a small notebook, scribbling in a language he couldn't understand. She was speaking to no one in particular, but her voice was calm and measured, as if she had done this many times before. Hale's eyes widened in realization. The girl was not just speaking a foreign language. She was speaking a secret language, one that he had never heard, one that held a power he couldn't quite explain. His mind raced. How was it possible that a young girl, the daughter of a housekeeper, could know such a language? Why had no one told him about it? As he watched her from the doorway, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe mixed with disbelief. How had such a talent gone unnoticed for so long? It was as if Clementine had been hiding this incredible ability right under his nose, and he had never thought to ask. Little did he know, this secret language was not just a skill. It was a gift that would change everything for him, for his business, and for the way he viewed the world. In the days that followed, Edward Hale couldn't shake the image of Clementine, the young girl, sitting quietly in the corner of the vast mansion, speaking in that strange, yet melodic language. It was as if the words themselves carried a weight, a power that Hale couldn't quite grasp, but instinctively knew was important. He found himself distracted, unable to focus on his usual business meetings or the upcoming gala. Instead, his mind wandered back to the secret language that Clementine had spoken. One evening, after everyone had settled into their respective roles in the household, Hale found himself pacing the grand halls of his estate, unable to rid himself of the curiosity that gnawed at him. He decided, for the first time, to approach her. The mansion was eerily quiet as he made his way through the polished marble floors and the endless corridors lined with expensive art pieces and antique furniture. When he reached the library, he saw her again. Clementine was sitting by the large, crystal chandelier, her eyes focused on the book in front of her. She was whispering to herself, as if reciting something from memory. Hale hesitated for a moment before entering the room, stepping carefully, not to startle her. "What are you reading, Clementine?" he asked gently, his voice betraying his own curiosity. The little girl looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and wariness. She had not expected him to approach. "Just a book," she said quietly, closing the pages. Her response was simple, but Hale noticed the way she clutched the book, as if it was more than just a simple object. It was something precious. "Is that the language you were speaking earlier?" Hale asked, his voice steady, but his mind racing. "The one I don't understand?" Clementine's eyes flickered for a moment. She seemed hesitant, like she wasn't sure how to respond. But then, after a long pause, she spoke softly. "It's not just a language," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "It's a way of seeing the world, a way of understanding things that others can't." Hale took a step closer, intrigued. "Where did you learn it?" he asked. Clementine's gaze shifted, and she looked down at the book in her lap. "My mom taught me some of it," she said, her voice barely audible. "The rest, I learned on my own." Hale's mind began to race. How could a young girl, with no formal education, know such a complex and ancient language? And how had it remained hidden in plain sight for so long? But there was something about Clementine's calm demeanor, her quiet confidence, that made Hale believe her. She wasn't lying. She wasn't seeking attention or trying to impress anyone. She simply spoke the truth. "Why haven't you told anyone about it?" Hale asked, now genuinely curious. Clementine shrugged, a small, innocent movement. "No one would believe me," she replied. "And it's not something I want people to know." Hale's mind was reeling. He had seen many things in his life, business deals, power plays, moments of incredible brilliance, but nothing had ever left him feeling quite like this. A young girl, the daughter of his housekeeper, possessed a secret that could change the world. He wasn't sure yet what that meant, but he knew one thing for certain. His life, and perhaps the world around him, would never be the same again. In the days that followed, Hale could not stop thinking about Clementine's words. She had spoken about the secret language like it was nothing more than a simple part of her life, something she had grown up with. But for Hale, it was much more than that. The language was a key to understanding a world beyond anything he had ever imagined. A world where power and influence were not governed by money alone, but by something deeper, something ancient. Hale's thoughts consumed him, and soon, his curiosity became a mission. He needed to know more. One afternoon, he made a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. He invited Clementine to meet with him in his private study, a room filled with shelves of books, expensive artwork, and rare artifacts from around the world. He waited patiently as she entered the room, her small figure appearing almost out of place in the vast, opulent space. She looked up at him, unsure, but with a calmness that suggested she had been expecting this moment. Hale gestured for her to sit, and as she did, he studied her carefully. He had always been a man who relied on logic and reason, a man who thought he understood the world. But now, sitting across from this young girl, he was beginning to feel like he was standing at the edge of a new reality. "Clementine," Hale began, his voice steady but filled with genuine curiosity. "I want to understand this language. The one you've been speaking. Can you teach me?" Clementine looked at him, her blue eyes wide, as if she hadn't expected the request. She hesitated for a moment, her fingers nervously tapping the arm of the chair. "It's not that simple," she said quietly. "The language is not just words. It's a way of thinking, a way of seeing things differently." Hale leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean by that?" he asked. Clementine took a deep breath, as though she were gathering her thoughts. "The language comes from an old tradition. It's not something that can be learned in a day, or even a year. It's about understanding the world in a way most people can't." She paused, her voice growing softer. "It's about seeing connections that others miss. And when you see those connections, you can change the way things work. You can make things happen." Hale's heart raced as her words sank in. This was not just a language. It was a tool, a method of seeing and influencing the world around them. In that moment, he understood that the power he had always sought in business, control, influence, and success, was nothing compared to the power Clementine's secret language offered. But there was one thing he needed to know. "Why haven't you told anyone about this?" Hale asked, his voice gentle but serious. Clementine's gaze dropped to the floor, her expression hard to read. "I didn't think anyone would understand," she replied quietly. "And even if they did, they might use it the wrong way." This language isn't meant to be used for power. It's meant to understand people, to help them. Hale's mind raced. He had spent his entire life chasing power and control, but now, in front of him, was something even more powerful: understanding. He realized that this language, if used correctly, could change everything. He wasn't sure what to do with this newfound knowledge, but he knew one thing for certain. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. In the days that followed, Hale became obsessed with the idea of Clementine's language. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said, how it was a way of understanding the world, seeing connections others missed. What had started as a curiosity had now transformed into a burning desire to learn more. Hale knew that in his world of business and power, this language could be the missing key he had been searching for all his life. Yet, there was still so much he didn't understand. How could something so simple, so pure, hold such immense power? It was more than just words. It was a way of thinking, a new perspective. Hale needed to learn it, to master it, and to see the world through the same lens Clementine saw. One evening, he invited her to the library again. This time, it wasn't just about asking her questions or hearing her speak. He wanted to understand. He sat across from her, eager to learn. "Clementine," he began, his voice softer than usual, "I need to know more about this language. Can you help me learn it? Teach me what you know." She looked up from the book in her lap, her blue eyes thoughtful. She had been hesitant at first, but now, something had changed. She saw the genuine desire in Hale's eyes. "It's not just about the words," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's about understanding people. It's about seeing beyond what they show you. You can't just learn it by reading books or practicing it like a regular language." Hale's brow furrowed. "Then how do I learn it? How do I understand it?" Clementine took a deep breath, setting the book down beside her. "You need to listen. You need to watch. People are always telling you things, but you have to hear what they don't say. You have to look for the signs, the little things that most people ignore." Hale listened carefully, absorbing every word she said. She continued, her tone quiet yet powerful. "People's emotions, their body language, the way they speak, the way they move, all of it is a part of the language. If you understand these things, you understand the person. And when you understand the person, you can change things. You can influence them, guide them, help them." Hale leaned back in his chair, taking it all in. He had spent his entire life trying to control people through power, money, and influence. But what Clementine was saying was different. This wasn't about manipulation. It was about understanding. It was about connecting with people on a deeper level. He realized that the power he had always sought was nothing compared to the power of true understanding. "How do I start?" Hale asked, his voice filled with urgency. Clementine smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Start by watching. Start by listening." She stood up, walking over to the window. "The world is full of stories, of people with hopes, dreams, fears, and desires. If you pay attention, you'll start to see them." Hale followed her gaze, staring out at the vast city below. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was seeing it clearly. The power wasn't in the wealth or the buildings or the connections. It was in the people, understanding them, helping them. It was a power far greater than any he had ever known. But Hale knew that learning this language, this new way of seeing the world, would take time. It wouldn't happen overnight. He would need patience, and he would need to trust Clementine. As he sat there, lost in thought, he realized something. This was the beginning of something new. A new chapter in his life. A chapter where the world was no longer just a place to control, but a place to understand. In the weeks that followed, Hale became more determined than ever to understand Clementine's secret language. Every day, he spent hours with her, listening, learning, and observing. He watched how she interacted with the people around her, paying attention to the subtle changes in their expressions, body language, and tone of voice. As he began to understand the small details that people usually overlooked, he realized that Clementine was right. True power didn't lie in wealth or influence, but in understanding the intricacies of human emotion. It wasn't just about words, it was about the unspoken things. Hale's curiosity grew stronger. He found himself watching the world in a new light, analyzing everything with a sense of purpose. No longer was he simply observing the business deals and the flashy displays of wealth. Instead, he was paying attention to the people, their movements, their gestures, their unspoken thoughts. Each day, Hale became more adept at understanding the emotions of the people around him. He found that his interactions with his staff began to change. He no longer viewed them as mere workers. He saw them as individuals with complex feelings, fears, and desires. It wasn't long before he realized that this newfound understanding wasn't just limited to his staff. It extended to the way he interacted with his business partners, his family, and even strangers. He had learned to read between the lines, to see what others couldn't. And this skill was beginning to pay off. One day, Hale received a call from one of his top investors, Robert Cartwright. Cartwright was known for his sharp business acumen and no-nonsense attitude. He had been one of Hale's most trusted allies in the business world. But recently, their relationship had begun to show signs of strain. Cartwright had become distant, his communications terse, and Hale had started to worry that their partnership was on the brink of collapse. As Hale answered the phone, he could tell immediately that something was wrong. "Edward," Cartwright's voice came through the line, tight and cold. "We need to talk." Hale's instincts kicked in. He had learned to read the subtle signs in Cartwright's voice. The hesitation, the lack of warmth, it all pointed to trouble. "What's going on, Robert?" Hale asked, his voice calm but filled with an underlying sense of urgency. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Hale could hear Cartwright taking a deep breath before speaking again. "I've been getting some unsettling reports. There are rumors going around about your company's financial stability. I don't know what's going on, but I need answers." Hale listened carefully, his mind working fast. He knew that Cartwright wasn't just worried about the rumors. He was questioning Hale's leadership. But instead of reacting defensively, Hale took a moment to pause. He remembered what Clementine had taught him. This was not just about business. It was about understanding the person on the other end of the conversation. "Robert," Hale said, his voice steady, "I understand your concerns. Let's sit down and go over everything. I'll explain the situation, and we can discuss how we move forward." Cartwright was silent for a moment, as if weighing his options. Then, finally, he spoke. "All right, I'll give you a chance to explain. But this is your last opportunity, Edward. If I don't get the answers I need, this partnership is over." Hale felt the weight of Cartwright's words, but he also felt a sense of calm wash over him. He had learned to read Cartwright's true feelings, and he knew that the investment was not just about numbers. It was about trust. Hale wasn't worried about the deal falling apart. He knew that, with his new understanding of people, he could turn things around. That night, Hale met with Cartwright in person, and as they sat across from each other, Hale did not just present the facts. He read Cartwright's unspoken concerns and addressed them directly. He knew exactly what Cartwright needed to hear, and he delivered it with precision. By the end of the meeting, Cartwright was satisfied, and the deal was secured. Hale couldn't help but smile to himself. He had not only saved the partnership, but he had done so by truly understanding the man sitting across from him. This was the power of the secret language. Hale realized that he had only just scratched the surface of its potential. He was no longer simply a businessman. He was becoming a master of human connections. And with this new skill, he knew that his influence could grow far beyond what he had ever imagined. In the following weeks, Edward Hale's mastery of understanding human behavior deepened. He was no longer just a businessman making deals. He had become an observer of human nature, a strategist who saw the world through a lens that few others could. His connection with Clementine had transformed him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Every conversation, every interaction, felt more meaningful now. Hale could sense the hidden fears and desires of people in his company, his business partners, and even his family. He had learned to use these insights not for manipulation, but to build stronger relationships and guide others in ways that benefited them and himself. But as Hale continued to grow in this new understanding, he began to realize that there was something more he needed to learn, something that could take his newfound abilities to an entirely new level. It was one thing to understand people's emotions and motivations, but Hale had come to understand that true power lay in using that knowledge to create change. It wasn't just about responding to people's needs or addressing their concerns. It was about leading them toward a better future. One day, while reflecting on his journey, Hale called Clementine into his office. He had been thinking about the deeper implications of what she had taught him. "Clementine," Hale said, his voice thoughtful, "I've been learning so much from you. But I'm realizing that it's not enough to just understand people. I need to find a way to use what I know to make a real difference, to help others. I've spent my whole life building wealth, but now I want to build something more meaningful. Clementine looked at him, her blue eyes calm but perceptive. You're starting to understand, she said quietly. The language isn't just about seeing people's feelings. It's about helping them see themselves. It's about showing them their own potential. Hale nodded, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. He understood now. The true power of the language was in empowering others, in guiding them to unlock their potential, just as he had unlocked his own understanding. But there was still one more step. I want to use this knowledge to change the way my company operates, Hale said, his determination growing. I've built my empire by focusing on profits, but I realize now that true success isn't just about the bottom line. It's about creating a company that values its people, that helps them grow and thrive. Clementine smiled, a small but knowing smile. You can do it, Edward, she said. But it won't be easy. You'll face resistance. People won't always understand why you're changing things. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, if you're genuine, they will follow. Hale took her words to heart. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be simple, but he also knew that he had the tools he needed to make it happen. Over the next several months, Hale began to implement changes in his company, starting with his relationships with his employees. He focused on creating an environment where people felt heard, valued, and empowered. He introduced mentorship programs, encouraged open communication, and made sure that every employee had the opportunity to grow. But the most significant change was Hale's new approach to leadership. He stopped seeing his employees as mere cogs in a machine and began to see them as partners, as people with potential. Slowly, Hale began to see the impact of his efforts. Employee morale improved, productivity increased, and the company's reputation as a place that genuinely cared about its people spread. But Hale knew that this was just the beginning. His journey was far from over. He had learned to understand people, to connect with them on a deeper level, but now he had to lead them. And with Clementine's guidance, he was ready to create a company and a life that was about more than just profits. It was about purpose. In the months that followed, Hale's vision for his company began to take shape. He had started to see the impact of the changes he'd made. Employee morale had improved, the work culture had become more open, and the company was more united than ever before. But as much as things were progressing, Hale knew that true transformation couldn't happen overnight. It required constant work, self-reflection, and a deeper understanding of the people around him. One afternoon, Hale sat in his office, reviewing the progress reports from his team. As he flipped through the pages, he realized that the changes he'd made had created a ripple effect. His employees were not only more engaged, but they were also starting to take ownership of their own growth. It was exactly what he had hoped for, but there was still one thing left to address: the larger impact he could have. Hale knew that his company's success wasn't just about profit or creating a happy workforce. It was about making a difference in the world. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. If he wanted to truly embody the lessons Clementine had taught him, he had to take things to the next level. He had to use his understanding of people, his ability to connect with them, to make a broader impact. That evening, Hale called Clementine into his office once again. He had something important he wanted to discuss. As she walked into the room, Hale stood up and gestured to the seat across from him. Clementine, he began, his voice filled with a sense of purpose. I've been thinking a lot lately about what we've been doing here, about how we're changing the company. But I think we need to take it a step further. We can't just focus on improving the lives of the people in our company. We need to start making a difference in the world. Clementine listened quietly, her expression thoughtful as Hale continued. I want to create a foundation, a nonprofit organization that focuses on helping young people from underprivileged backgrounds find the same opportunities one had. I want to give them the tools to succeed, to help them unlock their own potential, just like I've done. Clementine's eyes brightened at the idea, and for the first time, Hale saw the excitement in her gaze that matched his own. That sounds amazing, she said softly. But it won't be easy. You'll face resistance. People may not understand why you're doing it, or what the long-term goal is. Hale nodded, knowing she was right. He had been focused on building wealth for so long that the idea of giving back to others felt like a leap into the unknown. But he knew, deep down, that this was the next step in his journey. I'm willing to take that risk, Hale said firmly. It's not about making more money. It's about using what I've built to create something that lasts. 2. Change lives, to make the world a better place. Clementine smiled, her calm demeanor radiating pride. You're learning, she said. And this is where true power lies. Hale felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was a leader, someone with the power to change lives and impact the world in ways that went beyond wealth and status. The next day, he met with a team of experts and began to lay the foundation for his nonprofit. His company's mission had always been about success, but now, his mission was about purpose. With Clementine's guidance and his newfound understanding of human connections, Hale knew that the future wasn't just about building an empire, it was about creating a legacy. As Hale worked tirelessly to launch his new foundation, he saw how everything he had learned, every lesson, every insight, had led him to this moment. He was ready to use his understanding of people and the world to build something far more meaningful than he had ever imagined. The journey was far from over, but Hale knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than himself. In the months that followed, Hale's foundation began to take root. The vision he had shared with Clementine became a reality, and the nonprofit he established started making waves in the community. His initial fear of resistance had been justified, but Hale was determined, and his passion for helping others was contagious. The impact on the young people they helped was undeniable. Hale's organization was not just about providing financial support. It was about providing hope, guidance, and most importantly, the tools to unlock their potential. The foundation offered scholarships, mentorship programs, and career development workshops, all designed to give underprivileged youth the opportunities they had never had. As Hale watched the young people grow and thrive, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. Not long ago, he had been driven solely by the pursuit of power and wealth, but now, he found joy in the success of others. The more he witnessed their transformation, the more he realized that this was the true meaning of success. But even as his nonprofit flourished, Hale knew there were still challenges ahead. The business world wasn't going to stop just because he had shifted his focus, and soon, he found himself facing a new set of obstacles. One of his major investors, a man named Peter Langford, had grown concerned about Hale's new direction. Langford was known for his sharp business instincts, but he was also a man driven by the bottom line. He had always seen Hale as someone who could bring in profits, fast. And now, with Hale focusing on charity and social good, Langford didn't understand how that would translate into financial success. Langford called Hale into a meeting one afternoon, his voice cold and blunt. Edward, I've been watching your foundation closely, and while I admire what you're trying to do, I have to be honest with you. I'm worried about the direction you're taking. You're a businessman, not a philanthropist. You can't just give everything away and expect to keep your empire intact. Hale sat across from Langford, feeling a twinge of frustration. For a moment, he considered defending himself, but then he remembered what Clementine had taught him. This wasn't about justifying his actions. It was about understanding Langford's perspective and finding a way to connect. Peter, Hale began, his voice calm. I understand your concerns. But this isn't about giving everything away. It's about creating something bigger than just profit. It's about building a legacy that will last long after we're gone. The work we're doing through the foundation is helping create a future where success isn't just about money. It's about making a difference in people's lives. Langford's expression softened slightly, but he was still skeptical. And how do you plan to balance this with your business? He asked. Hale smiled, his confidence growing. By making both work together. The success of the foundation will create opportunities for my company, just as the success of my company will provide more resources for the foundation. It's not an either-or situation. It's about using the power we have to create positive change on all fronts. Langford leaned back in his chair, thinking. Hale could see the wheels turning in his mind, and for the first time, he felt that Langford was truly listening. After a long pause, Langford spoke again, this time with a more thoughtful tone. I still don't fully understand, Edward, but I see that you believe in this. And if you're committed to making it work, I'll give you the time you need. Hale nodded, grateful for the opportunity. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but he was willing to face whatever challenges came his way. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, Hale felt a sense of clarity. He was no longer just a businessman. He was a leader, a mentor, and a force for positive change. As he left the meeting, Hale couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had found a way to balance his business ambitions with his desire to make a difference. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but Hale knew he was on the right path. And with Clementine's guidance and his own determination, he was ready to face whatever came next. As Hale continued his journey, his life began to take on a new meaning. His company thrived, not just because of the profits it generated, but because of the impact it had on the lives of those involved. His foundation grew, and more young people were given the tools to succeed. Hale had learned to lead not just with his mind, but with his heart. He had come to understand that true success wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the lives he touched and the positive changes he created. His company and foundation became a model for others, showing that business could be a force for good in the world. But it wasn't just about the work he had done. It was about the personal growth he had experienced. Hale had come a long way from the man who had once been driven solely by power and control. Now he found himself thinking about legacy in a deeper sense. He wanted to be remembered not just for the deals he made, but for the people he helped and the opportunities he provided. And it wasn't just about the young people his foundation was helping. It was about the message he was sending to the world. That change was possible. That anyone, no matter their background, could rise above their circumstances with the right guidance and opportunities. As Hale walked through the halls of his company, he felt a sense of pride. His employees, the people who had once been nameless faces in the crowd, were now thriving. They had the support, the encouragement, and the trust they needed to grow. Hale realized that he had built more than just a successful company. He had built a community. And in that community, people didn't just work for a paycheck. They worked because they believed in what they were doing. They believed in each other. Hale's thoughts turned to Clementine, the young girl who had changed his life. Without her, none of this would have been possible. It was her quiet wisdom, her understanding of people, that had opened his eyes. She had taught him that real success wasn't about climbing to the top alone. It was about lifting others up along the way. Hale smiled as he thought about how far he had come. He had once been a man obsessed with power, but now, he was a man focused on purpose. As he looked out the window of his office, gazing at the city that he had helped shape, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. There was still work to be done, of course, but for the first time in his life, Hale felt at peace. He had found his true calling, not as a businessman, but as a leader who understood the true meaning of success. And he knew that the impact he had made would continue long after he was gone. The future was bright, not just for him, but for everyone whose lives he had touched. Hale had learned the most important lesson of all, that true power came not from wealth or influence, but from the ability to change lives and create a lasting legacy of good. In this inspiring millionaire story, you will discover the powerful journey of a businessman who transformed his life and company by embracing new perspectives and the value of understanding others. As he delves into the world of human connections, he finds that success is not just about wealth, but about creating lasting positive change. In this millionaire story, you'll witness how one man, driven by power and wealth, shifts his focus to empowerment, leadership, and building a meaningful legacy. The story takes you through the challenges, breakthroughs, and the lessons learned along the way, showing how understanding people can lead to not only personal growth, but also massive success. This millionaire story explores the importance of relationships, mentorship, and using one's influence for the greater good. As the foundation grows and helps underprivileged youth, Hale discovers that his true calling is not just making deals, but helping others unlock their potential. The lessons learned in this millionaire story are about more than business success. They teach the real meaning of purpose, leadership, and making a difference. Dive into this millionaire story and see how one person's transformation can change lives and create a legacy that lasts beyond wealth.